Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's class session. So far, we covered one basic work order scenario. So that means on basic manufacturing cycle we tested. So from today's session onwards, we will discuss the fields in detail. So from the beginning. So we already covered plant parameters in detail. We already discussed about plant parameters related to work definition, work execution, all the plant parameters. Then log into the application with our username, scp_user1. Select sign in. Select sign in. First, go back to item structure setup. Go back to item structure setup. Navigate to task. Navigate to task. So select product information management. Navigate to product information management. We already defined one item structure. So we discussed couple of fields in the item structure. Then we'll go with remaining fields in the item structure setup. Navigate to manage items. Select item. SCP_ASUS laptop. This is the item which we defined. So select item at Hyderabad inventory organization level. Select item at Hyderabad inventory organization level. Go to structures. Navigate to item structures. So this is the primary item structure which we created. Open the primary item structure. Open the primary item structure. So first we created item structure, nothing but a bill of material to manufacture the ASUS laptop. That means, so in a item structure where we are going to mention the list of the components required to manufacture the item. Then these are the three components required, and this is having a item sequence 30, 60, 90. That means first we are going to use core i5, then follows to hard disk, then follows to 4 GB RAM. Again, at what time we need to use which component will be decided by operation sequence plus item sequence combination. Operation sequence plus operation sequence combination. Then here we assigned three components which is having a start date, nothing but effective date control. Effective date control, nothing but, so from which date onwards we are going to use to manufacture the ASUS laptop by using these components. For example, in future, same ASUS laptop, to manufacture same ASUS laptop, I want to replace Core i5 with some other processor like Core i7. In that scenario, what we are going to do? In that scenario, what we are going to do?
We will create one more operation and we will end the current
No,
operation.
it's not operation. So we are going to revise this item structure with the new component. So that means we are going to add a new component for this ASUS laptop. And as we are not going to use this Core i5 anymore, we are going to give the end date for this item by edit, by click on edit. So we are going to give the end date. That means from this particular date onwards, we are not going to use this particular component to manufacture ASUS laptop. This is the effective date control. Effective date control.
Sarath, can we use the substitute items if we have to, instead of giving the end date?
No. Substitute item is a different concept. For example, substitute item means, so this is a core i5 where for specific time period I don't have on-hand quantity. So irrespective of core i5 processor, I want to use another core. For example, this is an Intel core. Rather than Intel core, I want to use another core. That is a substitute item. Likewise, we can use substitute items. But if you want to use the complete i7 is nothing but the processor itself, the setup will change, right? I mean, the processor performance itself, it will change, correct? Okay. So in that scenario, what will happen? So if you give core i5 to core i7 as a substitute item, how the performance is going to be same? Core i5 performance is one separate concept, and i7 is going to be a better performance. That means the performance wise, the application will change, correct? I mean, the item will change. Item performance will change. Correct or wrong? scenario, we are not going to use as a substitute item. Just we are going to replace this core i5 with core i7. But still, if you want to track this core i5 also as part of your item structure, that means for specific time period, I used i5 core i5 to manufacture this laptop. So if you want to track in detail, then rather than creating a delete group and deleting this core i5 from the item structure, rather than creating a deletion group and deleting this core i5 from the item structure, simply we can give the end date. That means from the time which we given end date, from that moment onwards, we are not going to use this item component to manufacture Asus laptop. And if you want, you can replace, or else you don't want to replace, there's a separate concept. Again, if you want to add another component or not, so that's a separate concept. But from now onwards, if I don't want to use this component to manufacture Asus laptop, then we need to give the end date. That is a effective date control. So that means this specific component is valid from which date to manufacture Asus laptop is a effective date control. Clear?
Sarath, what will happen if the work in process already using this item, it is not completed? If we keep inactive date.
Okay, so if you give a end date, what will happen is, so for a current work orders which already created before this end date, all those work orders we are going to pick the same component. But after that, so if you create, for example, I given the effective date as a 13th November 8:20 a.m. That means the work orders which created before that one, so even it doesn't matter whether unreleased or released status, we created those work orders by using these components only. That means same components will be applicable, because if you go to work order creation form, where you can see operations and items is populated from item structure and work definition. From the work definition, operations is populated from item structure. So items are populated in the work order tab. Did you remember, guys? Even if I show you that we can edit operation items, we can edit operations, we can edit operation resources. Remember?
During work definition.
During not work definition, during work order creation.
Okay.
So during work order creation, in the operations tab, we can see all these details. Then we have history tab where we can track the history. So there already, as we created work order, this component is going to inherit in that work order. But that means the work orders created before 820, we are going to pick only core i5. But the work orders we are going to create after 820, after revising this item structure, the new components will come into the picture for the new work orders. Even the existing work orders which already core i5 is populated, for example, those work orders also you want to use core i7 only. Then what you are going to do? There is two different concepts. One is we can edit operation items. Remember? Anyone try to play with that? Edit operation items checkbox is there.
Yes.
We need
So
to
then
revise
we
the
can
bomb.
edit operation items, or else at the time of reporting the material transactions also manually we can report core i7 rather than core i5. So anything is fine. Or else you can proceed with core i5 for the existing orders also.
Sharath, we can also create a change order for this bomb, right? That is also workaround.
Change order from bomb, nothing but revising this bomb. That's what we are going to do. So if you want to change the component, for example, but this change order won't applicable for existing work orders which created by using this item structure. Okay, so change order nothing but just revising this item structure only. But once we revise this item structure, from now onwards, whatever work orders you are going to create, so the new changes will applicable for the new work orders, but the existing work order, the components won't update. But for the existing work orders, if you want to change the components, yes, we can do it manually from the edit operation items column, or else again at the time of reporting material transactions, we can manually report so different components, or else, so forget about all those things. I don't want to use this component from now onwards. Then simply we can give the end date rather than delete. If we delete, So by using a deletion group, this component is going to remove totally from the item structure. But if you give the end date, then whenever we want to verify the item structure, we can come to know that this is the component which we used earlier from this time to this time to manufacture this laptop, but now we are not anymore using this component. So for example, I am manufacturing a laptop where currently I am giving 6 USB ports, 6 quantity of the USB ports, where out of 6 USB ports, 4 USB ports are different size and 2 USB ports are different size. So, but from now onwards, I don't want to use the 2 USB ports which are having a 6 mm. So only I want to use the USB ports which are having 4 mm only. There is a four USB ports. In that scenario, you can delete that specific line, component line, which is having a 6 mm USB port. For example, 6 mm USB port component, you can delete from the item structure. Then, so automatically from now onwards, that that component won't applicable for a new work order. Or else, rather than deleting, just to track for future also, rather than deleting, you can give a end date for the 6 mm USB port. That means from now onwards, you're not going to use 6 mm USB port to manufacture laptop, but still, so for past we use that one, we can track with the help of end date. So if you give end date, we are not going to use, but still we can see in the item structure.
Before deletion of item, we have to make sure that no work order should be there with this bomb structure, right?
No. If you want to delete the item, even there is a existing work orders also, it won't affect, because so existing work orders is going to inherit already. So for example, there is 10 work orders which are in progress. For those 10 work orders, already item structure and work definition is populated at the time of creating work order itself. But if you are deleting now, from now onwards, so the changes will be applicable.
Sarath, can you talk a little bit about alternate bombs too, like alternate item structure?
Alternate item structure, nothing but okay. So I will tell you, select done. So here we created a primary structure. So in the primary structure, I mentioned I'm going to manufacture the Asus laptop with 3 components, but an alternative item structure, nothing but, for example, same item I'm going to manufacture in 2 different qualities. So same item I'm going to manufacture with 2 different quality. Quality means, so for example, same Asus laptop I'm going to, okay, again components is going to be different. What we can say is, so 2 different qualities, nothing but okay. So I'm maintaining this a lot grade control where I am having a grade item and B grade item. So A grade item, nothing but where I'm going to use the best components. For example, so if I want to manufacture the same car, so in the A grade car I'm going to use MRF types, but in the B grade car I'm going to use some TVS or Apollo types. Let's take a simple example. So as well as in the A grade car I'm going to use, so don't change the features, in the A grade car. So I'm going to use the metal body, but in the B grade car I'm going to use the plastic body, but I'm not going to change the separate revision. Again, revision is different. So in that scenario, we can define one more item structure. For the same method we are going to manufacture, but components we are going to replace. Rather than MRF types in the second item structure, in the alternative bomb I'm going to use, so let's take an example, TVS types or Apollo types. So same. So rather than using the metal body, I'm going to use the fiber body. Like that, we can maintain a separate bomb. So that means with a separate components, even you can use a separate components. So based on the customer requirement, for example, if some customer asks, so this kind of item, again, don't go with ATO or back-to-back make. Don't go with that scenario. Some customers say that, so what type of models you can provide within that one in the same process, means we can say that if you go with the top quality, then so these are the features you will, these are the body and the types you will get, but same car, same engine, same features, you will come with this particular types and all those things, which will cost you some less amount. Likewise, we can refer. That is the reason we will create a alternative bomb. So here we won't pronounce as alternative bomb, just we are going to create one more item structure. Okay, common and copy is different. Just we are going to create a one more item structure. Which one we want to use is up to our decision. So okay, I will create one more. I will show you. So for the same Asus laptop, so one is primary alternate primary structure we already created. Apart of primary, I'm going to create one more structure for production. So effective control based on the date control only. So just I'm going to mention as alternative BOM, alternative item structure. Select, apply and add details. Select, apply and add details. So here are same Asus laptop to manufacture same Asus laptop. So this time I'm going to use only two components. Let's take an example, a CEP percentage. So what are the components we have? So 1 TB hard disk, select, apply. So 4 GB RAM, select, apply. For example, in this one, I'm not going to use Core i5 processor. Ideally, we have to use, but in this one, I'm not going to use. This means alternative BOM, nothing but. So here we have two item structures to manufacture Asus laptop. Correct? Do you have two item structures or not?
Yes, sir.
So that means, so if you want to manufacture Asus laptop with primary structure, where you are going to use three components, but same thing, alternative BOM for a quick process or anything, maybe cost control or anything. So we can manufacture same Asus laptop with only two components. This is nothing but alternative BOM.
So these two
Sarath,
structures will.
where are you
Yeah,
specifying?
one by one, guys, one by one.
So where do you specify that this is alternate and this is primary? In the name you are
No,
selecting
the
a
name primary itself is the main BOM, the
name.
name primary. And I will tell you one more thing. Okay, so select, save and close. For example, select, save and close. So select done. So navigate to setup and maintenance. Navigate to setup and maintenance. Navigate to manufacturing and supply chain material management. Scroll down. Navigate to manufacturing master data. So select show all task. Manufacturing, manage production lookups. So reason code resource, not this lookups uptype. WAE. So item structure is structure related lookups. Structure related lookups. Manufacturing lookups.
Manage item structure details. Scroll down. No, here only, Sarath. Right.
Sorry?
Scroll down. Yeah. Scroll down here. Scroll down.
Sorry, sir.
Structure type details. Is that is a lookup or manage item structure type details?
Yeah, I mean, those values will come from the lookup. Just I'm trying to find the lookup details. Structure item type. So let's see. Go to navigate to manufacturing and supply chain material. Okay, one second. Let me verify in product management. Go to product management. Navigate to items or structures here. Let's see which area we can see. So select show all task. So go to items. Select show all task. File options, life cycle phases, operational attribute groups, item types. So manage geography lookup, source system lookup. Source system lookups, product concepts lookups. Manufacturing and supply chain material management, search lookups. Legal entities, source, import, SCM, common lookups, facilities, supplier, inventory management, shipping, costing, production, lookups, supply order lookups. So let me see value. Manufacturing master data. Select show all task. So not from here. Let me see in inventory itself. Maybe sometimes in the common lookups we can see. So go to inventory management. So inventory lookups. Select search. Meaning. Once again, just let me pause recording.
This is what I do. I was telling you this
Oh.
manage item structure type details. You click.
Oh, okay. So actually,
Okay.
your voice is not audible for me.
Okay. Jay.
Okay, guys. Then navigate to manage item structure type details. So here we are going to define the names. Here we are going to define the naming convention. So here you can see just so we can add a new value, or else you can change the existing value also, whether active or not, or enable lifecycle validations, use primary for expansions. All these things we can enable. And you can create a new value here as a alternative bomb or anything. So now whatever we are going to create here, the naming convention, which we can use as a alternative bomb structure type. So from this setup, we can decide whether what type of item structure we are creating for the reference purpose. So from this setup, we can create this structure name. Okay, I think that question is answered, asked by Shripia, right?
Yeah, Sharath, thank you.
So if you want, you can create just a
I
naming.
have a question. So let's say we have two bombs, right? Two different ways of making an item, and if the plan runs, right? The supply plan runs, and it finds that it does not have the items required for the primary bomb, but it has items that are required for the secondary bomb, alternate bomb. Will it go for it automatically, or it requires a certain type of plan?
Well, coming to the planning, okay, so I think here we can see the 1 second. So use primary for expansion. So if we enable, even without enabling this one also, what will happen is, so your question, I got your question. Let me check whether anything is there. So your question is, if there is a more than one item structure, when comes to the planning, which one it will prefers, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I will tell you here. So whenever we are creating a work definition, okay, so coming to the work of planning will generate based on the supply request. So when the supply request coming to the picture, so system will verify the work definition for, if a item is having a, so item structure and work definition, usually in work definition, we will use only one item structure, correct? Usually in the,
Correct.
Correct.
so that means automatically which item structure we chosen for the work definition. So automatically that item structure work definition will populate for the work orders generated from the what we can say, a planning engine.
No,
But alternate routing is also possible. Alternate word
Correct.
is also possible.
Sharath, my question is also what she said is also I'm also see, I've already created a work order. I already have used a structure, and when I'm actually doing a 10th operation and 20th operation, and then I realize there's no parts here. Okay, then I look, I have one part for the alternate bomb. Can I use that bomb and then do it? I'm also wondering how we can do that.
Once it is in process, once the work order is in process, we cannot change the item structure, first point. So but if you want, you can do this reporting those components manually. You can do that one manually. You can report the
Okay.
components for
At the issue level, where we issue that at
yeah,
that
where we are
level.
going to issue our
Okay.
we will say
Okay.
reporting here. So where
Okay.
we are going to do manually. So okay, then alternative, routing for the planning means this one I have to check. So how exactly it will comes for the planning. So 1 second. Let me check, is there any parameters in this supply planning? So we'll verify that planning, how it will pick for the planning, we'll verify, guys. Okay.
I think based upon the profile values, it will be picked
I
for
don't
the
think
planning.
we don't have planning related profile values for the manufacturing so far.
At present BCP, if we specify alternative routing and bombing, first it will check at the plant parameter, then followed by org level, then followed by the hierarchy will be followed.
No, what I've heard, Sharath, is I'm not sure. Like it will always go for the primary BOM and routing, a normal plan. But if you create an optimized plan, then it will go for checking the other possibilities. If your primary BOM is not going to yield the most optimal plan,
Well,
like.
Resource cap. It will check all the constraints.
Yeah, like it cannot meet the demand date because you cannot build the product with the primary BOM. Then it's going to look for, okay, can I satisfy the demand with an alternate BOM and alternate route? But you have to enable optimized
that's
plan.
actually that's you are saying as okay, here we have two different concepts. So we have supply plan is different, demand plan is different, and supply and demand planning is different. So what you say is it's seems like similar to supply and demand planning, where so both supply will generate based on the demand requirement. That means what is the demand date, based on that one supply will generate. So but so I don't know whether it is possible or not. Exactly automatically from system onwards verifying is that possible or not, or manually we need to assign. So we need to check. Okay. So from planning point of view, just I need to verify, guys. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
So from planning standpoint of view, I need to verify.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Actually, where we are initially.
Structure item.
So we were talking
Items.
about that primary and secondary that lookups
Okay.
we were looking.
Yeah. So we are discussing about item structure attributes. Okay, let's go back to the item structure. Navigate to product information management. So go to task. Go to task. Select manage items. Select manage items. Item starts with let's go to CT_access laptop. Sorry, it's a ACP. CT_access laptop. So just open. So go to the item structures. So just edit. Okay, yeah, now I got it actually. Okay, so I got your point. So you're asking about this planning purpose, right? So there is a planning percentage and enforce integer. So enforce integer fields is there. Okay, so enforce integer requirement and planning percentage will work. Okay, enforce integer. So here we are going to see enforce integer up and down, all these concepts. Okay, let me show you. Select edit. Select edit. So enforce is integer. So here based on the enforce integer, so system will go with pegging. So system will go with pegging as well as planning percentage. So are you going to include complete components in the planning or not? So if you are going to include all the components in the planning, that means system will verify whether all the components are available or not. So yes, I included. So all three components, 100% is planning, 100% is planning. Then automatically what will happen, even system will validate whether the components are available or not. But again, picking alternative BOM or not, we need to verify. Okay. So whether system will pick the alternative BOM or not, or alternative work definition or not in the planning, we need to verify. But please.
The planning percentage applies to planning BOM, right, Sharath? There is a type of BOM called planning BOM, and it would apply only to a planning BOM, right?
No, not only for planning bomb, but also, so I mean, ATO bombs, all these things, a planning percentage will applicable.
Okay.
So for ATO bombs and all these things are planning, I mean, this planning percentage will applicable. Okay.
Okay. And the default will always be 100, is it? When we
By
create
default, it is 100.
Okay.
Okay. But again, whether it will pick or not, so we have to verify. Okay, whether it will pick alternative bomb or not, just I have to verify. Anyhow, I don't define all the setups in the planning also. Okay.
What is this component yield value?
Okay, yield nothing but, so for example, if you are manufacturing any item, okay, let's pick one simple scenario. Okay, so earlier we discussed about some cheese manufacturing, remember? So for example, so there is you are manufacturing some cheese slice, cheese product. So when you are manufacturing cheese, usually the machine will cut the cheese into the exact slices. For example, you mentioned some square shape in the machinery. Then you are going to place that complete raw material, a round raw material or something, a cheese, a big slice. That slice is usually what will happen. The specific production line, the specific manufacturing production line is going to cut into these cheese slices, and the remaining wastage it will, I mean, send to the next. So it will again go back to the process, and again we will round that as a cheese as a ball, or we will again come back to the same production line to cut the slices. Okay, simple scenario I will show you. Okay, cheese make line. Okay, cheese make line. So images. So for example, so if you are manufacturing a cheese slices, so this is a, for example, this is the raw material. So the raw material is like this, but this raw material just we are going to cut into these slices. So at the time of cutting into these slices, is there going to be any wastage or not?
Yes.
So when you are cutting into these slices, is there going to be any wastage or not? Ideally.
Yes.
Yes.
So that wastage, do we need to throw to the bin, or again we can use it?
You can still use it.
Again we can use it. That means that is the yield percentage. So yield nothing but, again, are you going to, so if something got wasted, so are you going to reuse or not is going to be the yield. Okay. So quantity 1, yield 1, nothing but whatever it is wasted, so complete quantity we are going to reuse again. That is the yield percentage.
Inverse quantity, when we are giving 5 quantity, 1 by 5 it will go.
Okay, inverse quantity nothing but, so this one quantity we are going to, for example, so one quantity we are using to manufacture this core i5. The same quantity if required are going to inverse nothing but, what I can say is reverse. Okay, so for example, you are going to, same item. So once you assemble, you found that this component, that specific quantity, I just want to replace and I want to send it back. That means that is the inverse quantity where we can return this specific quantity again. We can return complete quantity again. Ideally, inverse quantity is going to be the same exact quantity. That means whatever, how much quantity we are going to use to manufacture, so same quantity if required, so you can return back to the sub inventory. So that is the inverse quantity. That means whether this quantity can inverse or not will be decided by this checkbox, and by default whatever the quantity is going to be inverse quantity also.
Okay, if we have given the 5 quantity work order, if we want to return, then the inverse quantity will become 0.2, right? So that one value. The quantity can be written either 1 or more than 1.
Okay. Okay, let me tell you. So let me pick one simple scenario.
So if you need 10 quantity of the component to make one final assembly, you can either give quantity as 10 or inverse quantity as 0.1, right?
Yes, that means usually, okay, what will happen is, I will tell you. So for example, okay, same laptop I'm going to manufacture. So with the help of some component like, what do we say, bolt. So we need bolts also to assemble laptops, correct? So let's take an example. We need bolts. Okay, Then if the bolt, how many bolts are required? So some 10 bolts are how CPI is saying. So some 10 bolts are required. 10 bolts nothing, but we are going to choose the quantity as a 10 quantity of bolts. Then what will happen is the inverse quantity, I mean how she says 0.1, 0.1 nothing but. So 10 quantity is the required component. Out of 10 quantity, each one single quantity is going to be 0.1. That means whenever you are going to return back some bolts, so automatically you are going to return back 0.1 out of 10 quantity. Out of 10 quantity, we are going to return 0.1 in the 0.1 for entire 10 quantity. That means we are going to return one component, one quantity component of bolts. So that is going to be the inverse quantity which we are going to use for return the quantities.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
This at the time of usage purpose.
Okay, sir.
Okay, I mean ideally again this inverse usage how it will works is, I mean let's take an example. One more example. Let's take, so better inverse usage. Okay, so for example, we are using this basis type as a fixed. Basis type as a fixed. So here basis type variable, what it means? Tell me. So yesterday I told you last session. What is basis type variable?
We can use either more than one.
So we can
Not
use
fixed. The
It is-
core component quantity can be used
It is
more than the
proportional
value
to
which they have.
the component quantity is proportional to the final product quantity.
so,
Like-
but still we can, if that is basis type is variable. So, but still, for example, whatever the quantity we are going to use, so still we can use more than the so given quantity in the item structure, correct? If required. So that is the basis type variable. So
Yeah.
basis type fixed nothing but in item structure, whenever you are defining the item structure, how much quantity we given to you manufacture this as laptop, we have to use the same quantity. In this scenario, what will happen is if you are choosing the basis type as fixed, then when you are going with this inverse, so inverse quantity, for example, here I chosen as a, so quantity required 2. That means inverse quantity is 0.5. Inverse quantity is 0.5, and basis type is fixed. Then what will happen? So system. So whatever the total required quantity, system will pick the exact quantity, and system won't allow you to pick more than so 2 quantity. But if you are using a variable, still system is showing inverse quantity as 0.5. So, and if you want to round and if you want to pick more than one quantity, more than 2 quantity, still system will pick. So ideally this inverse quantity, when exactly it will works is, so is there any fractional quantities is there? So fractional quantities also will be there, right? For example, if you go to same manufacturing process also, some items you are going to mention in the fractions, like 0.1, 0.2. I mean, so let's take how we can say is there is a 1 liter chemical is required, but out of 1 liter, so there is a, for example, rather than defining that one quantity as a 1 liter, so sometimes you are going to pick 0.5 liters, or else some fractions we are going to receive, right? Some fractions we are going to use. Fraction quantities.
Yes.
Usually raw materials where we are going to use in the fraction, I mean like 1.011, like that. Did you see any time? The quantity nothing but every time we will say 1, 2, 3, but rather than quantity 1, or did you any time verified 1.011, 1.02 like that? The quantity in the
No,
fractions.
Sharath.
So if it is a raw material, then
If it is the raw material, then we can see in the fractions where the inverse quantity is going to round that. I mean, it won't round. For example, what will happen is, So if the quantity is in fractions and the basis type is fixed, then the inverse quantity won't be round. So it won't round and it will pick the exact decimal quantity. But if the basis type is variable and the quantity is in the fractions, but what will happen is the inverse quantity is going to round that component quantity. This is the exact scenario why we are going to have inverse quantity. I mean, the main concept, I mean, for example, if the quantity, we say 10 quantity is required, inverse quantity is going to be 0.1 only. But if you choose that the quantity required is 10.5, so or else a 9.9, let's take an example, 9.913 something is the required quantity to manufacture Asus laptop. In that scenario, so I mean, rather than giving us the 0.09 like that, system will round this inverse quantity as a 0.1. Let's take an example. So when the basis type is variable, but the same quantity when it is in fractions and if the basis type is fixed, so then what will happen, the inverse quantity won't round and it will show like 0.099 like that. So that's how system is going to works for the inverse quantity for fraction quantity, I mean the quantity which is in fractions, fraction decimals. Or else in the standard one, by default it will round, like for example if you say 1, then inverse quantity is going to be 1. If you say 10, the inverse quantity is going to be 0.1. If you say 0.5, then the inverse quantity is going to be, sorry, if you say quantity as 5, inverse quantity as 0.2, like that. By default system will populate the inverse quantity. And if the basis type is variable or fixed, so how much quantity we need to pick will be decided by, I mean, variable nothing but we can pick more than one quantity, more than the given quantity in the item structure. If the basis type is fixed, so we can give we have to pick exact quantity. So this is a standard scenario. But if the same quantity, if you see in the fractions, then whether so inverse quantity has to round or not. You say that I mean boards unit 9.925 quantity boards are required. Then what will happen when comes to the inverse quantity? If you choose basis type as variable, so 9.925 by 10, how much it is? For example, I will show you a calculator. So for example, 9 point, so you given one component as a, so required quantity as 9.925. In that scenario, what is the inverse quantity? What is the inverse quantity?
1 by 9.925.
1 second, where is this? So 9 point
0.9925.
Where is it divided by? Okay, sorry, 9.925 10. Okay, it is, what is the inverse quantity? 0.9925. So when if the quantity is a decimals, automatically inverse quantity is going to populate as 0.9925 when basis type is fixed. But when you choose basis type is variable, if the main quantity, the total quantity is in fractions, but still system rather than updating the inverse quantity as a 0.9925, it will update as a 0.1. It will round the quantity. It will round the quantity. Okay. Clear, guys? So because, so if you don't round, so whenever you use a 9.925, let's take an example, you want to reverse, ideally again reversing 0.9925 is a difficult. So rather than that, we are going to reverse 0.1 when the basis type is variable. So that is the reason. So based on quantity, when quantity is in fractions and based on the basis type, inverse quantity will works exactly. Or else if the quantity is like that, then automatically inverse quantity will work. So like if there is a 10 quantities report, just inverse quantity is going to be 0.1, and we don't need to round actually. By default, it is going to be rounding. Okay. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Others.
Yes, Sharath. Yeah.
Yeah, someone is asking. Then, so we already discussed the what is a basis type. So, and what is yield also. Yield nothing but just have to reuse the material. Ideally, I mean, most of these scenarios, yield is going to applicable for process manufacturing, but still in discrete manufacturing, all the chemicals and everything. So we are going to use as a yield. For example, you say that to assemble, let's take an example, to manufacture the car you need some oil kind of stuff or some grease kind of stuff, something you require. So you mentioned that 1 kg is required, but if that is not, I mean, so when you are really manufacturing, so you consumed only 900 grams and still 100 grams is left. Are you going to throw to the bin those 100 grams? No, right?
No.
So that is what yield. So so yield one nothing but 100% is we are going to reuse that yield. So whatever the not consumed for the quantity, within that quantity, whatever not consumed entire quantity we are going to reuse again by storing back in the shop floor. So that is yield. Scrap nothing but just throw it to the bin. Okay. Clear so far?
Yes, sir.
Is anyone observed there is a couple of differences when it comes to the creation of bill of material in EBS to bill of material in cloud? So what are the differences you observed?
That basis is not there in item structure, I think. Maybe.
No,
I
basis
don't.
is there. See
Is
basis.
there? I thought it's only in routing. Okay.
So what are the main differences you observed? Do you have anything like check ATP checkbox in EBS in bill of
Yes,
material?
yeah, it is there, I think,
Do
Sharath.
you have check
Check.
ATP now?
We don't. No, here it is not
So
there.
we are
Okay.
going to perform ATP also available to promise you need to check, but that is those setups will come under GOP only. And what else you have observed?
The
Anyone? Sorry?
bomb enabled checkbox.
I mean, no, we don't need bomb enabled checkbox by default. I mean, item structure is enabled. So some major changes. Is anyone observed like in e-business suite we used to have a sales order basis field for a minimum and maximum quantities as well as mutual exclusive concepts for option classes. Anyone remember?
Yes, Sharath, yes.
So, but those mutual exclusive and all those things is I mean they removed, and so far we don't have any alternate fields for them for those mutual exclusives or sales order basis fields for where we are going to use a minimum or maximum so quantity for the sales order. But check ATP comes under GOP. In the GOP, we are going to enable check ATP. Okay, guys.
Sharath, how do I create a DFF at the component level? In our company, right, they create a DFF field that indicates the revenue recognition percentage. So, like they put a percentage against every component, and then it will make like 100% of all the components, right? So, how do I, if I have to implement that in cloud, how do I create a DFF against the component line?
Okay, so let me pause recording for a minute. So another thing is create from copy nothing but so we can, so for example if there is a we are creating bill of material for organization level in the RLC you created one time in IMO level from the item master organization level. If you want to copy to Hyderabad inventory, yes you can copy by click on create from copy and you can choose from organization from which item structure you are copying to the current item structure. You can do that one, or else you can create a common bill of material, common item structure So for IMO plus organizations, you can create a single common structure. Even if you have a common item structure, still you can create one more item structure set organization level. So anything is fine. As well as comparing the two item structures, we can do that one also. So same item, so we can compare two different item structures, or as a different item, we can compare all these things. We can do whatever the components you want to compare, you can choose, and so simply we can compare. For example, here production, so just move selected attributes, just simply compare. Just comparing the data, we can do that one. So and just simply, just you people just try to create one common bill of material and let me know if you face any challenges. Common nothing but just creating one common bill of material for IMO plus organizations. So even still you have a common bill of material. So still we can create one more item structure for organization levels also. So just comparing structure one, structure two. Just simply what are the components is there. So what is the structure, supply types, all these things, just comparing. Okay, guys. Okay. And one more scenario in the item structure. Let's open. So go to where use. So in e-business suite also we have a where used form is there. So if you want, you can see the where used. So for example, let's go to this component. So this component we are using for Asus laptop. So not only Asus laptop, if you are using for any other item structure also, what are the item structures you are using this component? We can see from the item where use form. This is a where use form. So from here we can see that this component is using for what are the finished good items. All those things we can see here, as well as so substitute item for the same core i5. If you want to go to substitute, you can create a substitute item. Also, you have to define a relationship, and against that relationship, so you can create a substitute item. You can add a substitute item also. Okay, so rather than core i5, simply you can add that. So just add one more row. Oh yes, percentage. So just you can choose some item. So some just let me go with the test item. Again, so here there is two different concepts. So substitute item nothing but this is the substitute item for item structure. Item structure substitute item is different concept, and substitute for complete item relationship substitute is different. Item relationship substitute nothing but, for example, rather than Intel Core i5, for example, I want to receive another Core i5, or else I want to use another Core i5 by default. That is the item substitute relationship. So that is different. So here in the item structure substitute nothing but, so rather than core i5, if it is not available, maybe we can go with alternative component, that is a substitute component for core i5 component. Okay. Clear, guys?
So how it will work if the on hand is not available
Okay.
for that
Not
item?
only about on hand available. So for example, item substitute relationship nothing but, where we are going to define the item relationship as a substitute relationship. So we can receive, or else we can use for the manufacturing. So when there is a core i5 is not available, that is one concept. But at item structure level substitute nothing but, so rather than core i5, you can manufacture same with test item also. So that is the item structure component substitute. Okay.
So that in the work definition, these two components will be available. We can choose whichever item is there according to the
No,
preference.
in the work definition, only the main component will be available. In the work order, in the work execution, when we are reporting, so you can choose this. There, another substitute component also will be available to pick. Not in work definition, but in work execution.
Okay.
Okay. And this is item relationship. Here we can maintain substitute relationship. That is different concept. Okay. So let's go stick with item structures only. So any questions so far?
Sarath, yesterday I created one work order.
Okay.
I had completed review dispatch list,
Okay.
and the quantity has been stored into that locator, right?
Okay.
But I am not having any quantity value for any of the subcomponents. But still, the work order has been processed because it is all due to allow negative balances at organization level.
I mean, okay. What happens is here, so I won't say bug, but I mean, I don't know whether we have to say bug or not. Ideally, so we need to perform picking. I mean, so we need to report the transactions either manually or else automatically through backflush. We need to fill the components, then only we have to manufacture. But still, system is going to allow. I mean, forget about allow negative balance checkbox. Even that is disabled also. So if you want to complete the manufacturing process, still system will allow you to complete the manufacturing process without picking the components for the specific work order in the application. So I mean, we don't know whether that is bug or maybe required for some business processes. But still, system will allow you to complete the work order. Even if you uncheck the allow negative balances, even you go uncheck that allow negative balances, still, if there is no on-hand quantity, still system will allow you to complete the work order without reporting any materials or resources. But why it is allowing? So we are not sure, but it is allowing. Maybe we can say that is bug, or else maybe some other business requirements that feature also available. We are not sure. But it's not about allow native balance checkbox. That is a default functionality.
Okay.
Okay. So you
And
can
one more
simply
thing.
test it. Just in another, just simply uncheck that one and just test it once. It will work. Still, it will
So,
complete.
common scenario, we need to pick the components, right?
Common scenario, we need to pick the components. Then, so based on the pick slip grouping rule, I mean, at the time of releasing itself, if you want, you can pick and release at one time. So then we are going to pick the components and we are going to manufacture the process. Again, picking the components based on the supply type, assembly pool or operation output, we are going to generate the movement request. So assembly pool, nothing but. So for entire assembly, when we are releasing, we are going to pick all the components required to manufacture the item. Operation pool, nothing but for each and every operation, what are the components required. Each and every time we are going to generate a movement request and we are going to pick the components, and we have a push. Manually, we are going to create a movement request. We are going to push the components. That means, so we are going to report the material transactions manually. That is a push, and we have a bulk. So in bulk for all the work orders, just we are going to pick from the bulk sub inventories, or else phantom, nothing but just for imaginary purposes. Okay. So based on the supply type, we are going to pick the components. Okay, that's a real time. I mean, real scenario for standard manufacturing process.
And one more thing. Hello. In order to assign a manufacturing engineering role, we need to have any other specific role, because
IT
when
security
I'm
manager required for you to access security console.
which role, sir?
IT security manager role is required to access security console.
IT security manager is there, but I'm not able to select that manufacturing engineering role. So that
What is it?
sorry.
I mean, what is the issue you're facing?
I logged into SCM23 student. With that user, I'm able to log in. So that what the difference I find is OUSCM role. After adding that role only, we can able to select manufacturing engineering role.
What is that? What is that role?
OUSM role.
OUSM.
SCM role.
I don't think so because I assigned right for the SCP.
Because after adding that role only, I'm able to select that manufacturing engineering role to with my user.
I think that's a simple mistake because so for SCP user role also we added this. It doesn't require any other roles. For any user, if you want to assign a role, that specific user who is taking care of security console, so he should have a IT security manager. He should have a privileges. For any user, he can search and you can assign any role.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, it's not like that actually.
Okay.
If you face any that kind of strange issues, just take a screenshot and send me, guys.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's not the actual scenario. So the standard scenario is any, because usually what will happen is security console team. So one or two people will act as a security admins. So the job itself creating the users, assigning the roles. Any other questions? Okay then. So we are going to close this session. So tomorrow we'll discuss about a couple of scenarios in work definition, where we have to discuss about work definition name, and we'll discuss couple of more fields in work definition. Then we'll go to the work execution, where we have to discuss a lot of scenarios in work execution. Okay. Thanks for joining. See you tomorrow. Have a nice day, guys. Bye for now.
Bye, sir.